Power and energy are two words we use all the time. Today we'll be talking about these two words with Shari Goodwin. Stay tuned to see how you can harness them more effectively. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked, a show all about unlocking the resilient leader in you. When I work with words that are common, I like to explore where they came from and how they have been used. We're going to be talking about power and about energy. The root word of power comes from the Latin word potere, meaning to be able. Now, the word power itself wasn't used until the 14th century. Now, another thing that I love about the word is that it can be used in so many ways. So, for example, I might say, the power just went out, as if power is a noun, an entity. We also might say, no, we'll just power through this project and be done by morning. We're using it as a verb, as if we can power things ourselves, which of course we can. We can also say, she's wearing a power suit. It's describing something. Isn't it amazing how we use our language? All right, the root word of energy is from ancient Greek. It's the word energeia, which translates to activity or operation. Now, energy is the impetus behind all the motion and all the activity. It's the capacity to do work. In physics, it denotes the ability to do work, if associated with an entity especially. It means it can affect beyond itself. And we use it that way. We might say, there was energy in the room when she teaches. It's as if she created an atmosphere. Or we might say, there is an energy about him, as if there's an aura around that person. We might also say that the conversation had great energy. And there, it's almost as if it's creating a vibe. Those are two exciting words that we'll be discussing today. But today we have a first for Unlocked, and it is a very welcome first. To be a sponsor for Unlocked, I have to believe in your product or service because I have used it. So know that I have used this product, in this case, by eating it. And it is simply delicious. Since the 1800s, Smith Island cakes have been a symbol of family, faith, and community. In 2009, the Smith Island Baking Company was created as the custodian of this treasure, shipping hundreds of thousands of cakes made from scratch, packed with care, and delivered to celebrations of all sizes and shapes, far and wide. Today, people just like you celebrate important occasions with a cake. When is your next birthday? Welcome back. You're listening to Unlocked. I'm Madeline Blair, your host. Today we'll be talking about both energy and power and how we understand and use these terms in our workplaces and our ideas about leadership. And we may even venture outside the workplace, but more about that later. My guest today is Shari Goodwin. Shari is a certified executive leadership coach, business strategist, two-time Amazon best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and horsewoman with over 25 years of experience. She started 4 businesses and serves as director of program strategy for a global engineering firm. I love the juxtaposition of leadership, coach, and engineering. Today, she owns Jaeger 2 and runs the Inspired Leadership Mastermind. Her focus is helping her clients position for optimum impact and quality of life. What a great combination. Her books are Take the Reins, 7 Secrets to Inspired Leadership, and Reinventing Greatness, Leading Yourself and Others Through Change with Confidence and Trust. And by the way, she says that one has a free chapter on her website. We'll talk about that later. Her clients include such luminaries as the Federal Executive Institute and the World Bank. Shari was a founding member of the board for George Mason University's Women in Business Initiative. But something that impressed me even more than all of this was when at her recent TEDx talk, she described how a group she was working with, when asked how they did what she had asked them to do, they said, "Oh, Shari said that she knew they could do it." And Shari says, "I never said it. They must have read my energy." Well, if she can say things just from her energy, I want to know a great deal more about this. Shari Goodwin, welcome to Unlocked.
Oh my gosh, Madeline, such an honor to be here with you. And thank you so much for that really inspiring introduction. And I'm all fuzzed up and buzzed up and ready to go here. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm delighted that it worked. Great. Let's see. Let's get into things. I know we could chat, but I have to begin by asking how someone with degrees in biology and English and zoology becomes a leadership coach. I mean, when and what was the defining moment when you knew this was your calling?
Oh my gosh, such a great question because really, I didn't know anything about coaching. I'd never even heard of it before. I didn't even know about executive coaching until I was 41. It's crazy. We didn't do anything like that. We didn't do an executive coaching. We didn't even do professional development so much. And I don't mean any disrespect to my employers or anything, but it just, we're so busy working all the time that you just needed to just do the job. So for me, I think the defining moment ended up being really around someone had sent me an email to attend an executive coaching class or something. And I didn't know what it was, but the person said, this reminded me about you. And for some reason that made me think, oh, well, why? Why is that? So I signed up for it, and I couldn't believe the people who were in this training were all executive coaches or want to be executive coaches. And the thing that struck me so much was the power of inquiry, this power of curiosity, and curiosity mostly around human behavior, around motivation, what motivates you to do this or that. And as a scientist, curiosity is your main talent. That's what you do. You're investigating, you're asking why, and you get curious about things. So for me, it became just a whole new avenue for discovery. And that's really what, after that week, I brought that back into the environmental engineering company. And I said, okay, you guys, this is the coach approach kind of thing. I was all excited about it. Nobody else was really that excited about it, but I was very excited about it. And as I also reflected on my life, and I thought, I've been doing this my entire life. I'm a curious person. People always come to me with their problems, even when I was a little kid, only the ones that was fixing or advising or something. And it grabbed me, and I realized where the question that really drives me is, where can I add the most value to the world? And the container for that starts to shift. And I thought, gosh, I wonder if I just moved over here a little bit, I might be able to add more value. So that's what happened.
I love it. I love it. It's one of the straightest lines to that I've ever heard from somebody on this show. Oftentimes it goes all over the place, but I love how you captured it. And I think it comes back to that you said you were curious. When you're curious, your mind is open. And so as things come in, you're immediately relating them to what you know. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. We're going to be talking about power today. And in today's world, we often confuse power with energy because we talk about solar power, green energy, as if it all has to do with electricity that comes into our homes and businesses. As we'll be talking a lot about power and energy, why don't you expand on the definition that you bring to the table on those two words?
Sure. And I love your opening with power and energy. That was just a beautiful context. I learned a lot from that. So thank you for that. So for me, power, and it's kind of funny because I've been almost afraid of power in many instances and back away from it. And so for me to be speaking out about power, I've had to almost embrace my own power. And even the word, it's so stigmatized. You're like, ooh, I don't know who embraces their power. That's just weird. But here's what I mean by that. So yes, we can look at the physics, the definition for physics, and power is a rate. It's energy over time, energy divided by time. So that's just the basic physics of it, and that is really important because, as you alluded to or mentioned in the beginning, in the opening, energy is the ability to do work. So the more energy that you have, the more powerful you're going to be, assuming that equation. If we get away from physics and we look at personal power, we're looking at positional power, relationship power, and expertise power. So that's a super important way of looking at power as well. So when you're looking at power in the workplace, often what you can find is that it's not hierarchical. I found it can be hierarchical. Certainly there's hierarchical and positional power, but the person who actually holds the most power is not necessarily the leader. It could be the person who has the most relationship power or the most expertise power, depending on what's going on there, or maybe a blend. So we're always navigating this piece of power. Then the other thing about energy, and energy is that ability to do work, and energy is a vibration. I talk a lot in my work about vibrational alignment, and you and I can talk a little bit about what that means. But there's the emotions that you feel carry an energy. So emotions are actually energy in motion. And when you start to look at these different types of definitions and apply them to the workplace, you have really a suite of possibilities for how you show up as a leader.
I really want to come back to, you said vibrational alignment. Okay, and you're going to bring that back in later or do you want to take a
Yeah,
moment now?
we can talk about it. I might as well just mention it right now. In fact, so vibrational alignment it's similar to the law of attraction. So you and I are in vibrational alignment right now. You and I drew together through vibrational alignment, meaning we met at another event. You heard me, I heard you, and it was like, ooh, there was something there, right? There was a synergy there. There was an energetic match. We're on the same wavelength. And you hear people say that all the time. You're on the same wavelength. It's true. And I work with horses a lot too, and they're all about energy and power. Learn most of my stuff from them, because if you're not standing in your power, they're going to just steamroll you. And if you're also too emotional or you're carrying too much fear and anxiety, they're going to move away from you. So they have this whole dynamic that they're working just like people do. And when you said about the power of belief, you mentioned that in the opening as well with the TEDx. So strong because belief has a very, very strong power to it. I mean, we can see that outside of religion, inside of religion. It can drive people and motivate behavior. Belief can motivate behavior in ways that I think just learning can't even. It can empower people to do things that they wouldn't normally think they could do or have the capacity to do.
As you're saying that, a new insight came to me. Oftentimes, when I tell a story, I'm teaching, I tell a story, the person, well, I was talking about the concepts, it was going in here. And it's as soon as they relate to the story, the belief kind of comes in play. Am I hearing you right?
Oh my gosh, Madeline, you're the master of this. I have your book right here, unlocked, your latest one, which is fantastic. And you use the power of story to empower the reader to experience what is happening for these people and then what is possible for them. So there's this transfer of power between your characters or your clients in this book and the recipient, the audience, the reader. And magical. So thank you for writing that.
Oh, thank you for giving me that chance to make that new insight. Okay, you were talking, I interrupted you. No, we're okay?
Yep, we're good.
All right. So how do we translate all this new understanding into power and energy that actually operates in our personal and professional lives?
Yeah, so such a great question. So everything, and as a coach, you do this as well. It starts with awareness. If we're not aware of our ability to shift our energy, to be in a higher position of power for ourselves, personal power, uh, if we're not aware, we can't do it properly. We may get into it sometimes here and there, and it's not intentional. It's not deliberate. What I'm trying always to work on with my clients is to develop processes, and maybe this is part of my science background, so that they can understand, they can dissect what happened, why did it happen, and let's make sure that we understand the process so that we have the ability to repeat it, right? Repeatable process, get repeatable results over time. So it's not about controlling things, but we want to control the variables that we can, knowing that there's a lot of variables that we cannot control. And within that environment, an ecosystem, really, I mean, to use a scientific term, what's an ecosystem in an organization? There's all kinds of interrelationships. We want to be cognizant of how we're showing up. How do we need to show up as a leader in specific situations? Do we need to dial up our energy? Do we need to dial down our energy? How do we neutralize the energy in a meeting if it's starting to get too hot? Where is it going to land? Who has the power in the meeting? It's not always a person who opened the meeting. It's not always a person who has the highest rank in that meeting. There's a lot going on there. And when you understand the nuances of that dynamic, you can actually begin to direct it. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about guiding power. You can notice something, and it's also situational awareness. So people who are really great at situational awareness have a really good understanding of this dynamic, but they may not know it. When they start to know what's happening in this invisible undercurrent, then you have, oh my gosh, your understanding is just as optimized, and you can start to really impact and influence things in a way that you would not be able to before.
It goes back to that word belief. You suddenly understand at a level that you really believe yourself that you have it.
Yeah, I think, and I wonder about for you, Madeline, as well. I mean, it's a confidence thing. That word comes up a lot too, confidence and belief. But and you've done so many interesting things in your life, and I don't want to redirect your interview here, but I'm curious about, as we're talking, what's coming up for you. I mean, where are moments where you're feeling really empowered and really in your zone? What comes up for you?
Oh gosh, there are two areas, but the first area is when I'm working with a team, and whether that's a team of students or whether it's a project team, it doesn't matter, because those are moments when I get, I'll call it, maximum energy and feedback from them. So I'm dealing with lots and lots of how do I say this? I'm observing everything. And so that's a lot of information that's coming at me. And never verbal. It's just somehow in there being processed. And I'm able to do that. And when oftentimes they'll be discussing something, and I'll say, well, let me make sure I understand you. And I'll say this. And they go, yeah, that's what we mean. And so those are moments when I say, okay, you're in the zone. You're doing it. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And what I'm hearing too, fundamentally, there's that sense of absolute presence, right? So we're clear, we're focused, we're present without judgment. You're seeking first to understand. I hear that inquiry going, oh, let me make sure that I have this right. That's the dynamic. What happens in work situations is when we first seek to understand, which of course, that's from the Bible, but probably even before that, I've always been seeking to understand, as we can't understand. we're setting up conditions that are optimal for success. And when people at work are stressed, when they're anxious, when they're fearful of their supervisors or something else, because that happens, they're not at their best, and we don't have full access to our full power. I mean, because part of it is in the amygdala, and it's scanning for threats. It's constantly scanning for threats, and there's a lot of energy that gets used up scanning for threat, scanning for threat, scanning for threat. And you see it, and when they're scanning for threat, they can't be fully present.
Yeah. And just
right?
define the amygdala is in the brain. It's
Yep.
sometimes called the reptile brain. It's the originating part of it, original part of it. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So fight, flight, freeze. Fight, flight, freeze. Those are the three typical fear responses that you get, and they can be at a micro level. So you can start, when you start getting really good at the nuance and understanding, you can see people around a table, even in a Zoom room or a Teams or whatever we're using these days. You can see these, like, you can see somebody hold their breath, or you can see their facial expression just start to tense a little bit, or their eye flicks. There's all of this. And when you're a master facilitator, so you're noticing all of this nuance. And as you said, there's so much information coming in, but what's happening is, well, for me anyway, what's happening is I don't have to consciously think about that. It comes in, it filters out, and you do this so well. And my job in that moment is to keep the vibe neutral, right? To settle the vibe, let it come up so that there's a healthy tension, but then not let it get too far over the top so that it goes into an explosion and people lose trust and faith. We're always looking for psychological safety and that sense of possibility, which is what you heard in the TEDx. This sense of possibility. It's like, I believe I knew it was possible. See, I knew it was possible for them. They don't always know what's possible for them.
Yeah.
And I guess that energy of me knowing what's possible. Now, I didn't know if they're going to do it or not. I mean, some don't do it. They don't make it. And then they're all depressed. And then we have that debrief, and that's not as fun, but it's okay. It's important.
Oh, I love it. You've used the term or said that emotions are energy in motion. And as you're talking, I'm beginning to see what that means. But say more, because I think that oftentimes we find ourselves in fearful situations. Okay. And you're right. There, the energy in motion is, can I please get out of here? And so you're, but, and maybe you've touched on it, and I apologize if I'm going over what you've already said, but it's exciting to me to think of emotion as energy in motion, because it is clear that as we feel these things, the body wants to move. Am I getting it?
Yeah. So I love that. Thank you for that. That's very interesting. And when we talk about emotions as energy in motion, here's one way to think about it. People say, I'm in a swirl of confusion. Okay, you know why they're in a swirl of confusion? I mean, I don't know specifically why, but I'll tell you energetically what's happening is it's doing this. And there are energy vectors. This is what I talk about with my people as well. There are energy vectors that carry direction and intensity, and we have them all the time. So an energy vector, direction and intensity. So and direction could be forward, left, right, backward, down, up, all of that stuff, and it can be past, present, future. Right, so it can be time based. So you have all of that. So and then you have intensity, which is low intensity, high intensity, whatever that is. So there's a lot of complexity here to the emotion. So what happens is when you are in a swirl of uncertainty, there's emotions, there's energy in motion, and they're doing this because the energy vectors some are pointing to the past and pulling up energy from the past, saying, oh my God, I can't do this. This is what happened the last time this happened. And I don't know. And then there's fear of what could happen in the future. So you have an energy vector pointing to the future. You got an energy vector pointing to the past, saying, this is bad, saying, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. You're not present. And you get this thing, right, swirling around. So what we want to do, ideally, is land, get present, find this neutral energy, bring all your little energetic vectors and all your guys back into yourself, and then be intentional about what are we doing here? Can we go forward and bring them all together, and we go all, that's called alignment. right? So we go all together and we go right here. And then, so what that requires oftentimes is slowing down. So you slow down to pull it all in and you actually have higher impact.
Mm. I really love the images that are flowing through my mind right now about it, because when I work with people, I'm always telling them, look, resilience is about making the decision to move forward. And what you're talking about is that you're going to be in a swirl trying to make that decision because there's so many things impinging on you. Uh, the thought of being overwhelmed is another one of those times where people always say overwhelmed with too much information. I can see it now. Information coming in all over. Where do I look? What's next? Thank you for that. That's a great metaphor for me now.
Oh, you're so welcome. I love that. And we have to be mindful of our filters, right? So if and I'm a super sensitive person because I've cultivated these, extra sensory kind of things just from working with horses and other things. And everybody has them. Mine are pretty highly tuned because they work on it all the time, and I have to be for my own safety. With that, you get an onslaught of energy from other people, and you can take it on and think it's your own, and then you're in the swirl of overwhelm, and you weren't overwhelmed, but now all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. It's because you got somebody else's energy stuck on you, and now it's causing you to. So we need to clear, right? So for me, I have to clear on a very regular basis, daily. If I don't clear daily, it's like brushing my teeth. I have to clear daily, or I'm not present.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you. Can you talk about or demonstrate how you clear yourself?
Oh yeah. Let's do it right now. Want to do it right now?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Let's just take a nice deep breath. Close your eyes. Give yourself permission to just land right here, right now, in this space. Put your feet on the floor. Feel your connection to the ground. Relax any tension you find in your body. And allow all the little pieces of Madeline to come back to you. Bring them right down to the center of your body. You can breathe into your gut. Feet on the floor. We'll just pretend like nobody's watching. We don't care. Sit here and breathe. There you go. Good. So now we're in this neutral vibration together. And this is the eternal present moment. The now is all we have, right? Very Buddhist. And you can gently open your eyes and there we go. How do you feel?
Oh, this is great. This is great. It reminds me of Dan Jones when he comes and he talks about Tai Chi. And he calls it active calm.
Active calm, it's perfect. And this is the thing, we can condition ourselves to do it with one breath, right? You just I do with, and I'm sure you do, before every client call, even before emails and things, I'll just land so that I can be present and aware without judgment. Now, here's the resilience piece. I can be that. That's all good. And then I can get all, not so much. So, okay, I can beat myself up for not being nice and calm and active calm.
Not perfect.
Right? Yes, not perfect. It's how quick I can get back to homeostasis. That's what we're really measuring. It's that same type of peak performance where you can exert, you can go to a high state, but how fast can you actually come back to a resting state or an active calm in our case? And that's what's really important. So that's where the resilience comes in.
Oh, great. There is a book that I have been reading called Breathe or Breath. I can never decide which it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's one of the things that he talks about. And there's a certain pacing of breath. I've talked about it on the show, so I won't do it again, but it's very powerful. And you're right.
Yes, I have that book. There's some really great, I'm trying to look where it is, but it's somewhere here in the office. So yes, great.
Nestor.
Wonderful.
By Nestor. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we always seem to equate leaders with power. So I'm curious if you see that as equal, or are there other factors that relate to a leader's effectiveness?
Oh my gosh. So Great question. And I know that we have both seen leaders who are leaders in name and so not leaders.
Correct.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's almost embarrassing sometimes. And it's hard for them because you imagine the fear that must be going on. They talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, so no, I don't. I hold titles very loosely because whoever has positional power may not have the real power. I respect the title, and that's all fine. But what's really happening in the organization and who's being really the most effective? And it's as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the relationship power is critical. And if you're not trusted or respected, then are you really leading? I mean, it depends on how you define leadership. Sometimes you really do need just a command and control, and this is the way, and don't ask questions, and you do need that. I mean, we definitely need that in law enforcement sometimes because we don't have time. We just execute, and they've done a lot of work in the background to make sure that their team is trusts each other and all of that. But when it's time to perform, you don't ask a lot of questions. You just go on faith that your leader knows best, and you're just going to take direction. And that's really, really important. But most of the time in organizations, we don't necessarily have to triage like that. So we have maybe a little bit more time. And with that, we have the more relationship capital that we have, the closer our relationships are, and the more power that we have. So, for example, I've been lucky enough to work for some incredible leaders and have followed them to different organizations. So when a contract ends and they're like, oh, I guess everybody's laid off, or maybe we'll get a new one, and the leader maybe goes to somewhere, so the team often follows. And why would the team follow? The team could go anywhere. You could get another job. It's because that leader has relationship power. You trust them. There's psychological safety. There's opportunity there. There's also positional power, being a leader. I may be getting off track of your question. Is this making sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's actually a very complex question. You know that. But I like to ask those kinds of questions because it gives my guests a chance to range, which is exactly what you've done, and that's fine. Because I think we often, in particularly at this moment in our history, we're very focused on power and what it's doing and where it's being applied. And so it's important that we recognize it is not the equivalent of leadership. It's only an aspect.
It is. It's such a great point. And in the sea of great disruption are massive opportunities. So some of my clients have been impacted by current policy, and some have lost their jobs, and some have grants that have been taken away or whatever. And we've had multiple conversations about you don't need to lose your power here. Don't abdicate your own authority for your own being and your own effectiveness in the world. We need to figure out a different way to do it. We need to figure out a different vehicle or a mechanism. But don't just all of a sudden bail just because that piece has somehow vanished. And yes, that's unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And there's work that still needs to be done.
Yeah. You suggested in our earlier conversations, getting ready for this, that I ask you about guiding power through situational awareness to influence the environment. I think you've touched on that a little bit, but I wonder if you'd unpack that sentence a bit for our audience.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one of my favorite things. And I try to distill things down to their simplest components, just for me to be able to understand and then maybe convey them that way as well. So when I think about a work environment, we'll just use that. And you can apply any of this to your home, to your family, as you mentioned earlier. The energy and power transcends the workplace for sure. So one of the things that I like to talk about is this awareness of self, awareness of other, and awareness of the environment. So when we're in a situation, you can go into it and think, all right, how am I doing in this situation? How am I feeling? Am I being triggered? What kind of energy am I holding? What's happening for me in this environment or this meeting or this merger and acquisition or whatever context you're working? And then observing awareness of other. How do others seem to be in the same space with me? What's happening? What's the vibe? What's the energy? Who seems to be in charge? Maybe it's me. I'm in charge, or I'm supposed to be in charge. And then what about the environment? Meaning the physical structure. Sometimes you know when you go into certain rooms or certain buildings, there is a way that it's set up that makes you feel really relaxed and open, or maybe it's a little closed and claustrophobic. It could be where people are sitting, where the seats are. There can be all kinds of different things. So you're really reading the energy of the environment. And the environment, again, we talked a little bit about scanning for threat. So I'm like, okay, awareness of self, I'm okay. Awareness of other, they seem a little uneasy. Awareness of the environment, oh yeah, this is kind of close quarters for this size of a group, or maybe we're finding ourselves in out in the open, and it's too much, and we can't really unify as a group, or there's too many people, and we don't have enough connectivity between the different members. So we're looking at that, and what we're trying to do is make all getting that awareness, and then as a leader being cognizant of all of that and bringing all to this place of safety and neutral, just with your intention. Nobody needs to know you're doing anything, right? Just really landing it all, and kind of and moms do this every day with their kids. I mean, this is not some new concept, right? Where we just want to be able to say, all right, how can I best influence this situation? And so, for example, say you're in a kind of a heated meeting environment, and there's some key decisions that have to be made. And you and I have both been in these kinds of things, facilitating groups. One of the things I'll tell them in the beginning, and sometimes I get into these groups, and they're usually leadership teams, and there's some kind of strategic plan, or they're positioning for an acquisition. There's money online, and a lot at stake, stakeholders, maybe board members, who knows. A little pressure, lots of pressure. And all the individuals have different agendas. And they come in, we have the overall agenda, but then everybody has their own personal agenda within that agenda, which sometimes has nothing to do with the agenda that's set up. Yeah. So you go into this, and you start to see immediately, as a facilitator anyway, it's kind of interesting because we're observers of human nature, human character, human behavior. And we start to see, okay, this person needs to be heard. Maybe that person has never been heard, but in this environment, we're going to let that person be heard. And then you kind of notice the responses on the other, and you'll feel that tension. The power is in being able to hold that tension without it exploding over the top, and to be able to then guide it, right? It might explode, maybe not the whole thing, but sometimes someone will blow out. Okay, that's fine. But you can usually get them back in, and you're guiding the power, right? You can see you kind of can see that. I was going to say, you can see the energy, you can see the power.
Power is on their faces.
And yeah, right. And how they're positioning, body language, all that stuff. So there's a lot there to read. But we can't be afraid of it, right? You have to kind of redirect it. It has to be heard, And by it, I mean the high emotion. That needs to be heard. Now, here's the thing. So typically when I go into something like that, right in the beginning, I will set the expectation and let them know this could get really heated. It could feel really uncomfortable. You might want to walk out of here. You might get really pissed off, and you might, some things. I want you to know that that's a real possibility. Mm-hmm. Okay. But our whole goal here, and then we make sure that we're all on the same page with the ultimate objective, and we get agreement on that. And like, are you guys okay with this? Because this might get a little ugly. Okay. So now they've been prepared, right? So when it gets to that point, which sometimes it does, so we don't want to just sugarcoat stuff and not get into the nitty gritty deep stuff that really needs to be addressed. Then I can say, you feel that? That's what I was talking about. Healthy tension. We're going to keep it a healthy tension. We're not going to let it go over.
Yeah.
But by being respectful.
What you've described is I've lived many times. So I truly related, and you did it very well.
Thank you.
I've always referred it as our job is to hold the container.
Yeah.
so that people know that they're not going to, they may jostle around and feel a little uncomfortable, but they're not going to fall out.
Yeah.
For them. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And we may not all agree. We may not all agree. And some
Sure.
folks may leave not feeling that great, but this is part of the good of the whole, right?
That's right. But I think it comes back to one of the comments you said, the people need to feel they have been heard, so that you give them those openings to speak, even if they haven't spoken. And before, I've done that many times with organizations, because you know exactly who is going to be quiet, because you know them. They tend to be quiet by nature, maybe because they're low rank, or maybe it's just their personality, and yet what they have to say is as valid as anybody else around the table. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, introverts especially, they don't want to be outspoken, and then
No, and they're thinking very quietly. I'm married to an introvert, and so
me too.
I have learned to just be quiet for a while, and then he says what he has to say, and it's like, wow, I didn't think about that. So
Yep.
it's worth it.
Are we married to the same guy?
Maybe. I wanted to make one other comment. You were talking about the environment that you step into. I'll never forget one time we had to go to a law firm. I mean, it wasn't a legal issue. It was a meeting that we just used their facilities. And it was in the boardroom. And I sat at the table, and the table came up to here on me. So obviously, the lawyers in this company were very large men.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I here? So it was a real case of the environment impacting the participants. And you had to be aware of it to sort of overcome it, because you couldn't just sit there and do this.
Yeah. That's a perfect example. It's a perfect, and this is the thing. We want to really set ourselves up for success as best we can, and also know that we need to be flexible. We can't always have the perfect environment, but if we can make it a little easier, or at least be cognizant of the fact that that's a big disturbance, and call it out, and then we can be done with it. And then we just focus on what needs to get done.
All right. I have one last question for you, and I'm going to be terrible and ask you to please confine what you have to say in just 2-3 minutes. Okay. Yeah. I want you to assume that you're at a critical point in your career. Maybe it's time for you to be promoted, or maybe you're looking at retirement and you don't really want to retire, or whatever it is. What advice would you give to the audience to guide the energy and power to help themselves step through that moment?
Such a yummy question. It's all right here. It's all right here. All right here. Okay. So any kind of pivotal, huge decision, we need to get back in touch with our heart. We need to get back in touch with our core values. We need to understand our why, our raison d'etre. Why do we live? Why do we exist? What are our values? What's meaningful for us? And so, top 5 values, that's one easy way to do it. What are your top 5 values, and how are they showing up in your life? How does this decision that you're making align with those values? Is it in alignment? Is it out of alignment? And then use somatic awareness as well. A lot of folks try to make this all from a head decision. And so your brain, talk about spinning around with the vectors. Oh my God, they got vectors going all over the place. And that thing's spinning, and I don't know, and I'm uncertain, and if, and doubt. And so there's doubt and fear and anxiety and all this other stuff. Get rid of the head thing. Go into your body and listen to your heart, listen to your gut, get the somatic intuition, like, what does my body feel about this? And then be able to assimilate the information that you get from your body in a very truthful way. And your body, it doesn't always care about rational ways. It may give you some insight. You're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, okay, well, let's look at it with respect to your values as well. How might we be able to orchestrate something that's in more alignment? Because really, anytime there's a shift like that, it's an opportunity for us to check our alignment and to go deeper into it and find a way to have it expressed even more outwardly in this next space, next decision, subsequent, after the decision, following the decision.
Great advice. Thank you. Thank you for taking a rather challenging question and making sense of it. I tell you, this has been such a joy to have this conversation, Shari.
Oh my gosh, likewise, Madeline. Such an honor to get to talk with you. Thank you.
And I want to tell the audience that you also offer a free chapter from your book. You just go to Jaeger2, that's Jae, no, yes, Jaeger2, number 2.com,
Yep.
and they can get a free chapter from your book.
Yep, you just click on the little thing. It's the how to get into the high impact zone. It's the high impact leadership section, which is very it's a lot of the stuff we talked about today, but even more formulaic. So it's kind of stepwise.
Great, great. Well, again, my deep appreciation for your time, Shari, and your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Every now and then, there is something that changes how I think about the world. Grounds for Thought is a place where I talk about these moments so that you can explore the meaning for yourself.
We've been talking about power and energy, but I want to talk about power and energy of the margins. I call them the hidden cost of efficiency. I've been thinking about it. Resilience rests in that space where we make the decision to move on, but it's the energy that allows us to do so. You can't take action unless you have energy. And the energy comes from our bodies, but it also comes from something deeper. Some would say the soul, some would say our spirits, some would call it our enthusiasm. You call it whatever you will. It's that deeper source of energy. I tend to refer to it as yourself. So let's talk about how to build energy within yourself. If you're an individual, you work on knowing who you are as a clear sense of identity. And because when you have it, it improves confidence, it improves competence, it improves creativity, and most certainly, it improves resilience. Just one step, getting to know who you are, leads to so many sources of energy. You can also build your network of friends who support you. Strong social support is essential to being resilient because when things are tough, they lift you up, almost as a direct source of energy. A large circle of friends and supporters can give you a remarkable lift. Another unexpected source of energy is something about seeking new knowledge and understanding and never feeling you have quite enough, so that the knowledge becomes almost discretionary. I know I study all kinds of subjects. People would think I'm crazy, but it's amazing having that discretionary piece of understanding over here in this place that has nothing to do with resilience. Suddenly I get a new insight about resilience. I find that highly resilient people are insatiably curious. I think that it alone energizes you to ask another question, turn another corner, try something new. Just being curious helps you move forward. And if we're talking about a team, then once again, a clear sense of identity is essential. We usually call it the mission of the team, the problem that is being solved, the goal that is being sought. When the team knows the mission well, and Shari talked about that, the members are almost pulled toward its accomplishment. The idea of giving each other support is, again, as Shari mentioned, trust. If the team works to build the trust of each member, the members feel confident to do what they believe is best for the achievement of the mission. Even when they are wrong, the only energy that the team has to use is to correct that action, not recovering from feeling hurt or needing revenge by hurting back. Just think of a group that never has to feel they have been shunned or left out or targeted. They simply move on knowing the intentions are still positive. Energy is even saved. Now, if a team also has a culture of inquisitiveness, oh my goodness, questions can be asked without judgment and creativity abounds. When the team meets an unexpected barrier or block, all of its energy can be focused on solving the issue, moving around it, or whatever it takes to move forward, move toward the mission. If you're talking about a company, parallels still remain. The energy of the company resides in the clarity of the mission, the relationships among the members, and the creativity of the staff, both inherent and permitted. Go back and think about what I said about teams. In addition, another factor stands out. Does the company have margins? If market forces suddenly change because a new competitor offers a similar product, or prices rise because of a drought, or a new technology is introduced, additional resources to learn new technologies or change market strategies are needed. When there are no margins to call on, there is no ability to be flexible or agile. One of my guests, Nadia Jekshampayeva, talks about innovation. And she says the point is that really, and the one that really struck me was when she talked about just-in-time inventory that keeps things only at the minimal level. Strategy that when things change, there are no margins to respond. With just-in-time inventory, only minimal parts are ready for production. With just-in-time philosophy, staff know only what is essential and may not be able to even perceive the problem, let alone solve it. Every dollar is accounted for and nothing for discretion to meet the crisis unless the bank is willing to cough it up. In business school, you learn about optimizing things, not seeking perfect efficiency. Rigidity is the hidden cost of efficiency. It is the cost of not being able to change, hidden because it isn't there, yet the impact is hardly hidden. Make sure your company's energy is at a level to respond. Without a clear sense of purpose and mission, strong relationships built on trust, or discretionary resources, that is margins. There is no energy to respond to changes. Efficiency can have a high cost when the world is in constant motion. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and learned something new. I love the interaction. I love to be able to interact with you and hearing what you're thinking about or are concerned with. And the best way is to get on my mailing list. Just go to my website, MadelineBlair.com, go to the contact page, sign up. I never share my mailing list with anyone, and I send out no more than one email a week. And of course, if you're on YouTube, click the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This helps me, and it helps others who are looking for similar information. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilient leader.